Hello everyone, this is Nikita and thank you for joining me in here. This video is about activity in Pega. This is most requested by all the viewers. So this is one topic which I should make a video on. So I have also made a video on a very useful topic on activity, which is Obj methods in an activity. So if you have not yet checked out, please go and check out that video. I'll put a link in the description also. So in this video, I would go from a very basic level to understand what is an activity and in what situation we will need to write an activity in Pega or we need to create an activity in Pega. So with that in mind, let's just jump into our application. So first of all, where do we find an activity? So go to the records and then in technical, you will see all the list of activities in your application. Okay, so what is an activity? Activity is a series of steps that works in an order or that is called in an order, and you can specify what you want to do. You can specify jump condition, you can specify when condition where you want, and all of these things you can do through an activity. Now I will take you from the very basic. Let me delete everything what I have here and do a save. The situations where I will need an activity is when I need to create a page and then do some calculations on the properties in a page, and either to open any instance or class instance and save or commit any instance, or you can also use an activity for logging any specific thing that you want in your application. Then you can call a connector rule, you can call almost all of the rules from an activity. So what is an activity? As I've specified, it is a rule form where you can specify your steps, and there are some predefined methods which have been created already, which you can use, and then you're good to go. Now, can I call an activity from another activity? Yes, you can. You can call an activity from inside an activity. You can also call a data transform. You can call a flow. You can, as I told you, can do almost anything from an activity. Okay, so what are the things that you see in an activity? First of all, let's go through each tab. Steps, parameters. Let's go from the first one. It's the steps, where you specify the the steps that you wanted to execute. Maybe I want to have a page new. Okay, when you click on down arrow, you will see all the methods that are available. So if I click on page new, okay, what is a step page? Step page is the page on which this particular step will run. So I have created a page new. I have used a page new method, but what step on which I have created it? So basically, when it is a page new, you can provide the page name which you need to create. So maybe something like candidate page. So here you specify your step page. Now the whatever you specify as the step page, you need to provide the same in the pages and classes. Basically, you need to provide the class name of that page. So let me use it here. So I think I have already added it. So you provide the page name and you provide the class of that page that you want to create. Okay. Now, what is a description? So, as you have seen other programming language, you provide some comment. You provide some comment on the steps if you want. So, similarly in Pega, you can, in an activity, you can provide a comment to that step. Maybe creating a new page. For all of the different methods, you may not need to specify the description. But I just showed you for reference purpose or demo purpose that's how you can also provide a comment to a step in an activity, right? Now, this is about the description. Coming to what is label, what is loop, and what is when. Label. Why do we use a label? So you can actually jump into other step through label. So maybe what I can show you is, suppose I provide a when condition here. Okay. So when is, maybe let's take any of this. Always. So always is also a when condition. When you specify always, that means it will always be true. So if true, what I do? I wanted to jump to a later step, and here you will need to provide that label of the other step. So other. Okay. And in false, you don't want to specify anything. It will continue as in the next step. So when you submit this, as you see, there is this highlighted when condition. That means it has a when condition already in. Now you have provided this label other, but do I see any label here? No, right? So now I need to create a step which has the label as other, and here it may be like page remove. So I'll just remove the same page that I created. Okay. So that's what the label is for. Whenever you do a jump condition or you specify something like this, you have to provide the label here, and the same label you have to add it to that step. Okay, so this was about label. So what you did here as a when condition, you can do a similar thing in jump as well. So when I'm in jump, I can click on enable condition after this action, and this jump condition will always be executed after the step is done. Like after coming to this step, right? When you complete the page new step, then the jump condition will be triggered if you configure it. So suppose I configure it as never. I want it to execute. So when you specify never, again you will have to provide some value. When it is true, what do you want to do, and when it false, what do you want to do. Okay, so maybe I will want it to, you can see there are a lot of different options here. So what each of this means, when you click on continue whens, it just goes to the next step. Okay, and when you do a skip whens, it just skips whatever when condition is present after this. Maybe I can have lot many when condition right here. So when you provide a skip whens here, that means it will not go to the next whens which is there after this particular when condition. Okay. Now what is this jump to later step? I have already told you. What is skip step? It just skips this particular step, right? It just skips whatever is present in here and just goes to the next step. Similarly, exit activity. What does exit activity means? It will just, if it condition, it turns out to be false, it just exits this activity and go to the calling activity. The calling activity or whatever has called this particular activity just goes there, and the activity execution stops then and there. Okay, so that's what activity is. So you have lot many option to be done. And again, you can also specify some exception label. So when there is some exception which happened on this step, you want the label, you want the step to go to which label. So maybe I want it to go to other. So it will just go in there. Okay. So that was about the steps. Now, what is parameter page? So you can provide parameters into this activity, or you can actually, either this activity can take parameters or it can spit out parameters also, which is called in and out parameters. So suppose I have a parameter called index. Okay. Now the data type of this would be, you can provide whichever is correct for you. Maybe I'll provide an integer here. You need to provide that whether this parameter is a required or not required. So maybe for me it's not required. In and out. So as I told you, there can be two kind of parameter, which is an in parameter and out parameter. In means this particular activity takes the parameter from the calling place, from the calling activity or something like that. But what is an out parameter? Out parameter is where your activity produces a parameter, and that parameter is used by the other activity or by other places, by other flows, whatever it can be. So that's what in and out parameter is. What is a default value? You can provide some default value to the param. Suppose you always want this parameter to have some value with some default. So you can provide some default value here. What is a local variable? Local variable is where you provide some, it's like a parameter, but this has a restriction, as in it is only available till that particular activity. So local variable is always there till that function, like in any other programming language. Similarly, in an activity, local variable is localized to that particular activity. Okay, so suppose you're doing some calculations around some value and you want to save it for temporary use in the local variable, then this can be used for you. Parameter is different, where parameter can be used in another activity. It can be, you can create some parameter and give it to some other activity. This can be done, but local variable is different. So this is one, and page and classes, I already told you, whatever pages you create or use in your steps, you need to provide it in the pages and classes. This is done for initialization. Until and unless it knows the class in which it has to initialize, it cannot create the required structure in the clipboard. Coming to the security tab, so you need to provide whether your particular activity, it requires the authentication to run or not. You can provide your privileges, and also sometimes you need to directly invoke some activity from the browser itself. So in that situation, you need to check on this allow invocation from browser. From 8.5 onwards, if you click on this, you also have to provide the privilege name. Otherwise, it will not allow you to save. So this is something that you have to note. You will get this error. So be mindful whenever you click on this, when you check on this, because this can cause a security issues if you don't do it properly. Now, coming to this activity type, what is an activity type? It is a kind of a signaling, because activity can do a lot of different things. As I told you, it can it can connect to an external system. It can call data page. It can call, it can be called from a trigger, declare on chain, declare trigger. There are a lot of different places from which activity can be called or triggered. So that is why, to make it easier to classify them, we give the type of activity it belongs to, whether it is a normal activity or it is called from a flow, or you can provide this in here. So this is a basic video on activity. So I'll not go into much detail on any things that you will not use frequently, but make sure whenever you creating any activity, you need to be very mindful of whether you are creating any guardrail warning or not, because this will cause your compliance score to be degraded. So make sure that you read what it is trying to say. This will always be coming, because Pega suggests that you create a data transform instead of an activity, because activity, whatever an activity can do, most of the other rule types in Pega already has that capability to do. So that is why Pega does not recommend you to create more activities. It tells you to reuse the existing activity that it already has created, the out-of-the-box activities. That is why this is a warning that you will always get when you create an activity. But in some situations, in some scenarios, that you will need to create it. Suppose I need to loop a page list. In that situation, I can just go in here and use a loop condition, and then give the for each embedded page and submit. So in that scenario, what you do is you need to provide the page list. So I'll give this one here. Okay. Okay, let me switch off any jump condition. I just want to show you what a loop does here. So it can also provide a looping for element in the value group or value list or top level page, or also you can also specify a for loop here, right? In any programming language, you create a for loop, you provide a minimum and a maximum value and the increment. So similar way you can do it in an activity also. You can provide a minimum value, you can provide the increment, and then the for loop will execute for that many number of times. Okay, so it's a very helpful feature when you have to create a for loop. Now, what are other things that it can do? I told you that it can call an activity from inside. So maybe I'll try to create, I try to call an activity. So px retrieve report data, this is an activity that is used to call a report definition. Okay, this is an activity, out of the box activity. So in this way, you can call any activity from inside an activity. Let me remove this. Okay. Now it's saying that it requires some parameter which we have not provided, but I just wanted to show you how you can actually call an activity. Okay. Now, how can you how can you log any thing in your console? So maybe I'll use a log message for it. So here you can provide whatever you want to log. Maybe you want to log the operator name who has triggered this activity or run this activity. So test activity triggered by, and here you can specify the operator name who has triggered it. Maybe the one who has logged in will trigger it. So use operator ID dot py user identifier. And how did I know I have to use this? So there is a system page called operator ID, which you can find it in the clipboard. I can go in here and you go to the system pages. There is this operator ID, and in this you will find a py user identifier, which is my name. Okay, so that's why I have used this. You need to use a concat plus operator so that this property gets added to this value. Now, what is the logging level you have to specify? If you have to forcefully add this log in your console, then you have to use info forced. So this is one thing which you can do. Now, what else you can do from here is you can call a decision table, you can call a decision tree, and you can also call your RDB methods from here, right? And sometimes you might have to use a wait. Suppose you have an activity which you have called in the first step, and in the third step, in the next step, you want it to wait for a certain period of time before it can execute. So you can provide a wait method there. So maybe wait method can be 2 seconds. So till 2 seconds it will wait. So suppose I have a page here. Okay. Now I want it to wait for a few seconds and then page remove. Okay. So what I will do is I'll do this. So it should wait for 2 seconds and then page remove should execute. I can actually run this and show you. Let me trace. Okay, when I run this, what do I see? It waited for 2 seconds. You might have seen one delay, right? So it waited for few seconds and then it removed the candidate page. I can increase this and then show you again. Maybe 15 seconds I will keep now. Let me run this. Just see the tracer. Okay. So you can see the wait is still going on. The wait has started, step begin has started, but step end hasn't come. So it's waiting for 15 seconds. Now it has come. So wait step end and the page remove has happened. So this is a very useful feature. Sometimes you need, you need to wait for few seconds before you can execute the next step. Then you can use this method. You can call a data transform from here, from apply data transform. You can also pass parameter page from here. There are a lot many things you can do from an activity. I hope this was useful to you to understand what an activity can do. I'll come back again with my next video on some useful topics for you. Till then, keep watching, keep learning. See you. Bye bye.